What we're going to do is we're going to quickly go over Polygon Modeling within Maya. We're just going to look at primitives, the different inputs that they have, how to transform and manipulate those objects, and then quickly look at the UVing. So I'm going to create a sphere, and as well, I'll quickly start this up. So this is a sphere, obviously, and whenever we open this channel box just here, it's going to open a bit. The really cool thing about Maya is all of the panels are fully manipulatable. We can sort of move them around and we can dock them, which I'm going to do there. So every object within Maya will have its own series of transforms. So to manipulate these transforms, you'd have translate, rotate, and scale. And to access these would be W, translate, rotate would be E. All the hotkeys are just presented down here on the bottom left, and R to scale. So that's at a very basic level. That's how you would be able to manipulate our objects. Just zero those out and set the scale back to 1. Another way that you can manipulate objects right off creation would be its own series of inputs. So every object within Maya has its own series of inputs. In this case, for a polysphere, it has radius, so we can either type in manually the radius, or we can select the text just here. All I'm doing there is left clicking on the text, hold Control, I'm on Mac by the way, and then left mouse button to drag, and you can see there how it's just adjusting it on the fly. Much the same with the subdivision axis. We can reduce the number of divisions, and we can obviously increase the number of divisions. We can either just again manually enter those in, or like that. So with this, we can just reduce the number of divisions by sort of hitting within there. Okay, so let's just reduce this right down. So at a very basic level, that's how we can then manipulate the object. So the next thing to look at, so this is basically object transforms. If we hit this little hammer tool here and hit W on the keyboard, it will then bring up our move settings. In this case, the axis orientation is set to world. We could obviously, based on the world, we'll work in X, Y, and Z, or X, Y, and Z. If we then change this to object from world and then start to rotate it, you'll see that this pivot point is now facing this way. If we were then to toggle this back to world, we can then just work in a very linear X, Y, and Z type of fashion. But if we were to change this to object, you can see there we're working to the object's rotation. So if I was to start manually adjusting this rotation value, and then back to object, you can see that this rotation has been somewhat offset, and then back there. You can see that it's basically oriented to the object's pivot point. We can work with different ways. The easiest is world, because it's X, Y, and Z. So X, Y, and Z. It might be Z this way. So basically, the different axis, the different world space origins. But as a separate way that we can work, if you wanted to rotate objects and things like that, it might be of benefit to work with a particular. Say if you wanted to scale something up in a particular direction, or model something out in a particular way, then you would just work with the object space. So you can see there I'm modeling based on the object's direction, and this axis that I'm working to is specific to this object. If I then changed to world, I would then move this component up. So you can see there it's a very different way of working. It's something to make you aware of. So I'm going to quickly just delete that. So you've got, at a very base level, you can manipulate objects with translate, rotate, and scale. You've got this object inputs, so the radius, the subdivision axis, and the height for this particular object, which was a sphere originally. And then you can manipulate the object via different object and world space settings. You've then also got object components. So if you right click on an object, select vertex, you can then start to manipulate the geometry of that transform at a more on a more component based level. So at the minute I'm working at vertex level. Right click, select the edges, and I'm just going to move this around. I can pull this out. And this is just to give you an idea of, I'm not modelling anything in particular, it's just to give you a bit of an idea of how you can manipulate primitive objects. So vertex I was just using there, and then let's look at faces. So just position and manipulate the faces just around like so. So depending on what object you're creating, that might be really relevant. Let's say you were modelling a house. So obviously start off with a cube, just position this up, number of divisions, height, subdivision width. Let's say put 2 loops through here, and then we're going to start adjusting the components. So in this case, let's just manipulate the edge, pull this up, there's a picked roof, and then we can start adding in additional elements such as using this multi-cut tool. So let's just cut in there and cut in an edge there. So components are vertex, which we can pull around. Not bad. Obviously we make these taller, smaller, whatever. And we can work with faces, select the faces, pull these around like so. And again with edges as well, we can pull these around like so. You can see that it's giving different results every time. So another way that we can also work with the different components is by snapping them to different elements, and you would snap them with these hotkeys up here. But to get access to those snapping tools, you could just select the object or component. I'm selecting the vertex, and I'm going to snap to the grid. In this case, you'd hold X, and you can see that it's snapping to the grid. I'm going to snap this selection here also to the grid, and then this vertex here, this group of vertices here, I'm just going to snap to these vertices, and I'll hold V to do that. So you can see that it's just snapped. And these are the hotkeys that I'm holding on. So I'm holding that key down. I'll move that window. So you can see there, I'm just modelling, spinning it around, and that I think it's okay for a bit of a starting point. You can see there, I'm snapping, and I'm snapping. And you can see it's snapping to these different edges. I'm holding X there. Let's say that I wanted to. Let's add in a edge loop. So edge loop, where are we at? Where is edge loop? There we go, insert edge loop. My bad. Right, okay, so let's create an edge loop here. And again, we'll double tap this edge, snap to this grid here. But let's say that we want this vertex for whatever reason to be, select the vertex. We maybe want to slide this vertex along this edge. You would hold C to slide it along the edge there. Or if you wanted to be a little bit different, you might want to then slide this. I know we start off with a house, but everything. This is just to give you a bit of an idea of how to use the tools within my room. So all I'm doing there is holding C. And I'm just holding C. And depending on which edge that you run the mouse up, it will hold focus and lock to that edge. It should, at the minute, it's a bit freeform. You can see it's kind of locking on there. And again, if you hit V, it's going to snap to each of these vertices, and that's fine. Okay, hit V, you can see all the hotkeys I'm pressing. Okay, so the next thing to notice is, let's say I'm just going to reduce selections, and then just snap it there. I mean, this is just a very basic kind of level. It's just getting used to using the components. It's not, I'm not doing anything too prescriptive and modelling nothing super advanced or anything like that. It's purely just to give you an idea of the tools. Okay, so that'll do for that. And then what you'll notice is all of these, I kind of had a little bit of a hissy fit. Object, select the object. What I'm going to do now is, after I've made all those inputs, so I started off with Polycube, I've adjusted the mesh, I've inserted an edge loop and another edge loop, and I've tweaked the mesh further, and again I've added another poly split ring. All of these inputs start to slow down the machine, and it can have a little bit of an impact on performance. They're also really important that we can adjust different things on here, like after we've made the initial change. We can start to go back recursively a little, and we can start to modify things. You can see there how it's starting to change based on what we've done. But the great thing about Maya is you can go back with this history. Not so great in some cases, but yeah, we can kind of go back and adjust things accordingly. So every object, the more work you do to it, will build up this history. So it can slow down your machine over time, especially if you've got a really big stack of history built up here. And how you would get rid of that is go to Edit, Delete by Type History. So it will delete this history here. Something to note when you come to rigging characters, i.e. putting skeletons into your characters and deformers, things like that, you go to Delete by Type History and Non-Deformer History. So that's just something to point out. Okay, so very quickly we'll look at the UVs within Maya. So to access the UVs, and to just try to give a little bit of an overview of UVs, what I would want you to, or how I would want you to think of UVs within 3D is, think of each of these like, think of it almost like a cloth that's been wrapped around this object. In this case it's kind of like a house, and we want to unwrap. Actually, it needs a little bit of work if it's going to be a house, but just for the purposes of giving you guys something to look at. Each of these sides are going to be a separate surface, but the thing to think about is this UV tile is effectively where these elements or these UV shells are going to be laid. So what you need to do is think of them almost as separate panels or separate garments. So every mesh that you'll create, or every piece of geometry that you'll create, will have its own associated UV set. So there's different ways that you can manipulate them, and generally the quickest and the simplest is automatic UVing, which basically just automates the whole process and breaks it up into a very difficult to read UV shell layout. You can try to do different things to make it a little easier, but on the whole it's not particularly easy to read. What's really cool in the new version of Maya is these UV shell colours sort of give a little bit more context to what you're actually looking at in terms of the mesh. So there's a bit of a weird kind of thing going on there, so let's go edit mesh mode. Yeah, so I thought there was something weird happening with the display. So yeah, so you've basically got these, if you automatic again, it will lay them out, and then go modify layout, and it will try to lay them out within this UV shell. A really useful thing to do would be to turn on textures checker map, and that's another cool way that you can visualize these UVs being laid out. So you can see there's no stretching on the UV tile. If we select this little gizmo here, third one in, this would basically give us the colour map of our UV shell. You can see there how it's changing colour. It's going red, back to white. White basically the optimal. Red is too stretched. Blue is, it's not particularly planar, or it's not, again, quite optimal. So we want this to be relatively easy to read. So let's select another option. Let's maybe try best plane. So what we could do is select the few faces that we want. In this case, this selection of faces on this side, and then go to UV best plane, and then select this one face. So basically what it's done is, it's taken my first selection of those four faces, select one or more faces, or three or more vertices to define the projection plane, and then press enter. So the projection plane basically is the direction of the face that this is pointing out to, or the vertices, the direction, the normal, or the direction that they're pointing. And we'll go over normals and things like that a little later. So we want to kind of select this face, because this is pointing out this way, and I can show you that by going to display, where we're at, polygons, normal, face normals. I need to actually select the object and then face normals. Hit return, and you can see there how it's projected this based on this. I'll look at face normals after, it's not a deal. So you can see there we've got this nice tidy UV selection there. And again, let's maybe try the same for this. UV. And instead of using the best plane, let's try camera based. So what this does basically is it projects the UVs based on the current active camera. So if I hit G, you can see there it's sort of skewed based on this camera's perspective. If I hit G again, you can see whichever way I move the camera, it's projecting those UVs based on the camera. So again, not ideal for this. The best way would probably be best plane. Select the face. There we go. Got a nice UV layout. It's maybe not. We might need to then rotate this, perhaps, and then lie this down next. I'm not too worried about the fact that these are kind of encroaching on these UV shells. So then we've got this side wall. We could then use planar. So planar is basically based on the different views. So planar would be the different camera views. So the planar in Y, and Z and X. So in this case, what we might want to do is planar in X. So why is mine going crazy? Planar X, and what we should get when we project through there's a nice big cube of this, and you can see this manipulator is basically that wall that we've just projected through. And again, it's nice and neat, or relatively neat. Let's do the same again with the other side. So select this side, UV, and we'll do the same again because it's on the same axis, so it's set up much the same way. And again, we can select this bottom face. What would be slightly different here would be planar, and then this would be the y-axis, because if we remember, we're looking down top y, so hit Y, project, and now we've got a nice sort of nicely laid out selection of UV shells. So if we were to just click off there and then go to texture, check them out, hide this, you can see there we're getting a nice, easier to read selection of UV shells. So I just want to select all these faces, modify layout, and try to lay them all out in one nice, even sort of pile. Let's have a little look at these. What is this? Is that the roof? I think that is the roof. It is. So what we maybe need to do with that is just like that. That's fine. We can live with that. Again, project from the top. Actually, what we could do, we'll just do that. Project from the top. Let's close this down. Actually, know what it's going to do. Select faces, just this selection here, and then go to UV, planar, Y, should be set at Y already, and that's going to project through the roof. So we've got nice, easy, identifiable UV shells. Select these, modify layout, and it's just going to try to lay these out in a very easy to read sort of way. So we should have a side view, which is this. You can see this because it's yellow, and when we select this face, you can see these faces correspond to this sort of side wall. This face here corresponds to this element here. This is the bottom of the object. And this is the side wall, and this is the back wall. So what you've got to remember is when we've hit the layout, you're in full control of how you want to lay these out. By the way, you don't have to work with Maya and what that's what. Let's say that this is quite an important part of the building, and ultimately that's what this is about. When you come to lay out UVs, it's about optimizing this UV space. So getting all of these UVs. I mean, you don't have to have them all sharing one UV tile, but it can be useful when you come to texturing objects. So let's say that we want the walls and the roof, and let's have a look at this side wall. This should be equally important there. What's this here? This is again another sidewall, so again that. Okay, we'll potentially lay them over, but that's fine if objects are going to be sharing the same sort of textures perhaps. So don't worry too much about objects that are going to be sharing the same texture. I don't think it's something to worry too much about. But if they're overlapping, let's say you've got them stuff like this, where there's a UV shell just lay over like that, when you start applying textures, it's going to make very little sense. So let's select all of these elements, grab all these, and let's just sort of try to maximize this coverage. So again, what's really cool is if we go to textures, check them out, we can see here with the texture check map turned on that this is encroaching into this UV space. What we need to do is, it's actually this UV shell here that's, if we were to pull that in, you can see it pop off. We just need to sort of maybe, it depends on how important this is. This might maybe need to be on its own separate UV tile. There are different instances where you might need to work that way. So that's how you would go about UVing. And there are other tools which we can look at further in these tutorials. The 3D cut and sew tool, you can see all these little elements that with the green highlight are all the new tools that have just been added for my 2018, and this is a really cool way of trying to keep you within the viewport so you can visualize things. Everything within Maya is starting to become a lot more visual and a little bit more intuitive, which is really good. And again, you can see any object history, all of these UV edits that we've made, edit, delete by type history. Really important that you get into the habit of doing that, particularly while you're working, because if all this builds up, this history, it will really slow the machine down. It's okay, I'll see you next time for another video.